All right. I will say hello and welcome back to another episode of the Balance Breakdown. And we are joined by the regular gang. I don't have names for you, I'm afraid. Today, I don't. We are joined by the king of the pack, Mr. Ian O'Neill, the only professional one in the building. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Harry. Thanks for having me again. I'm looking forward to waxing lyrical about this card.
Fantastic. And we have Polaris's two new marketing members, Robbie and Lee. How you going, my friends?
We're good. Our rates are low. We do everything for free.
Fantastic. I love that. I just want to start.
Give us a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to start by just congratulating you both. I think what you're doing with the Polaris thing is actually a really cool thing. There's not many media members that cover Polaris other than Polaris, and obviously it's on UFC Fight Pass and they don't need a massive amount of coverage, obviously, but I think it's really cool to have you guys doing that interviewing the fighters, interviewing the athletes, and I think it's a really cool thing. So I've enjoyed listening to them. I've had a couple of my friends say, oh, have you listened to the Combat Thoughts guys interviews, the Polaris guys? And I'm like, yes, I have. So that's always cool, right? Like that's always cool. So keep doing that.
Nice to know it's not just my mum that listens.
No, I mean, I listen too. So, two fans.
Appreciate that, Harry. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll roll into some fights because, I mean, who cares about jiu-jitsu, right? News is Amanda Nunes is not going to be fighting Julianna Pena. She has caught the Rona. Initial thoughts? Is that a saving grace for Julianna Pena? Does Julianna Pena fight someone at short notice? What do we think?
I don't think saving grace is the right. I think this is only bad for Pena. A few scenarios that happen. She fights someone else, potentially loses a title shot. Mm-hmm. She gets the fight delayed, and she still gets smashed as much as she was going to in the first place. Can I just check we're all agreed that she was probably going to get smashed?
Absolutely not. Close guard armbar for the win. Let's go.
Ignoring that, she's going to get smashed anyway. Best case scenario, I guess she does fight someone else and wins and then goes on, but it's just a huge risk. I mean, if any fighter was a couple of days away from a title shot and took another fight on short notice, I would seriously question who their management are or if they're listening to them.
No, I've seen a few things on Twitter where people are calling for Miesha Tate, and I like that fight from a Miesha Tate perspective. She's older. She's kind of fit. Just come off a good performance to jump. To jump in and take the fight. It makes sense for a Miesha Tate to take that fight. If I'm Julianna Pena, I'm saying hell no. She's got the Rona. I'm going to wait out and get my title shot in a few weeks.
Lads, interim title.
Yeah. They could have a double interim title on this card then. Look, but I don't think all word coming out is that the fight is looking to be rescheduled. And like the guys have said, if somebody was offered that fight, if there was even for an interim title, someone like Miesha Tate would probably snap that up. But I don't think it's the wisest move for Pena to take any fights right now. They're talking about rescheduling the fight. We've seen some COVID protocols in the UFC, and we've had fighters come back literally within a couple of weeks after COVID. And I don't think that Amanda Nunes is completely down or in bad shape with the virus. It's just down to the protocols that are it's a little bit too close to the card for anything to happen. So we could see this even put onto the next pay-per-view card. And I guess as we were recording this, the news just broke. So I'm sure more information will come out in the coming days about what's going to happen.
And that's been the UFC's approach so far, even when they was doing Fight Island, was if you got COVID, you just got it pushed back a bit. And it's the fair way, because it's nobody's fault that she got the Rona. It's just everywhere.
So my second bit of news is more of a question, and that is, does probably my favorite fighter at the moment, or my favorite fighter in the last couple of years, ever fight again? Zabit Magomedsharipov. Do we ever see him again?
Ooh. I mean, reportedly he's been hit pretty hard, but how old is he? He's not. I mean, he looks haggard, but yeah, he's not 29. That. He's getting on as fighters go, but he's still got a lot of years left in him. Who's to say how? No one knows how he's going to recover.
Ian, have you got any inside news?
Nothing at all. I'm disappointed that he's not able to compete, because I think he's a fantastic fighter, fantastic competitor, and the chance that we would have got to see him fighting these top featherweights there in the, like, coming into the close of the prime of his career. It's all up in the air now. And I think, you know, if he is medically clear to fight, and if it does make sense for him, I would have no doubt that he will come back. I don't know. Yeah, everything is all up in the air right now. It's not looking too good for him with his current status. So yeah, we just had time will tell, really.
Because my worry is obviously there's the Kadyrov pressure, right? But also he wanted to retire, right? Like, he openly said he wanted to retire because of his injuries. And then he had the political pressure and everything else. But if he does come back, I'm just going to throw it out there. Can we see him and Edson Barbosa?
Oh, yeah, that would be a great fight. Isn't who is Edson Barbosa fighting right now?
I don't care. Stop that. Throw that out the window. Let's have some fun.
It's not even like, there's not even one fight which with him in it you get super excited. Like, him versus Holloway would be fantastic.
Nah. Him versus Holloway is a one-sided beatdown.
All right, you know what though? Out of anyone you can pick, I'd say the big danger for Zabit is that there are very few fighters who take a long time off and then come back and then take a lower level fight. They're like, they're back and they're like, I'm back, baby. Go in at exactly the same level. And does it often go well?
That's Not
really.
No,
great.
No, MMA isn't. It's not really a sport where you need to be taking a prolonged period of time back and then coming back into the highest level. It doesn't always work out. Like, I think the biggest question I had about Zabit was how we would be able to handle a 5-round fight, because, you know, if you were trying to nitpick at him, it looked like he was slowing down in 3-round fights. And I was very curious and excited to see how he would have progressed into a 5-round fight and how much he would have changed up his game. Because that was my biggest question. And when he started getting to the upper echelon of the division, he was going to be starting to be put into 5-round fights. How was he going to be able to handle that? Like Harry said, you're coming in there against a cardio machine like Max Holloway, and you're not able to withstand that for 5 rounds. There's going to be trouble. But that's a question that's up in the air right now. And if he comes back, maybe it'll be up to him to answer that. But then this whole injury thing is going to throw a spanner in the works. And, you know, it's crazy. You just want to see the best fighters fighting the best guys. And it's unfortunate that he's had these injuries. And hopefully he comes back of his own accord and he's not forced back. And hopefully he comes back 100% healthy as well.
However well he is going to come back, in terms of his cardio, let's be honest, it's probably going to be a lot worse, especially after long COVID. He's gonna, you know, like, you can train, you can get it back up, but it would surprise me if someone came back after a long illness like of this type and had cardio of the same level that they had before. I don't think it'll go well. I mean, the one thing I would say is that maybe the time off will be good for his injuries.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on. So the meat of this card is Derrick Lewis, Cyril Gane, Jose Aldo, Pedro Munhoz, which is a fucking banger. Chiesa, Vincente, Luque, Tecia Torres and Angela Hill is almost certainly going to get bumped up to the main card, right? And then we have Song Yadong versus Casey Kenney, which is also a fantastic fight. Retired Karolina Kowalkiewicz, obviously making a return against Jessica Penne. And then the prelims. So we'll dive right into the interim title, Derrick Lewis, Cyril Gane. Does anyone, first, before we get into the actual meat of the fight, does anyone have any opinions on the fact that it's for an interim title?
Not really.
Didn't we cover this in a podcast before about how it was
Wolf tickets?
Yeah. I mean, it's Dana White's classic move. How do I get more views on this pay-per-view? Interim, slap it on, see what happens, drive views up, give Ngannou a bit of a beating about the fact that he talked about going to boxing and he was outspoken about fighter pay. But also, it doesn't mean much. Interim titles get handed out like, I don't know. They're all over the place. They don't matter anymore. They're so cheap at the moment.
It's the other side of it as well, where it's Dana White saying, oh, you want to negotiate and you want to be difficult about fights. Oh, cheers and Ngannou, cheers this John Jones. Do you know what we're going to do? We're going to give out belts to everybody and you can all fuck off and sit in obscurity for a while. And I think that's what the interim title in this is.
Yeah. Dan Hardy said something very, very poignant on his podcast with Dan Strauss. If you haven't watched it, go and watch it, and then go and watch Robbie's interview with Dan Strauss, obviously. But he mentioned that, it's literally just a negotiation tactic. You know, they're sitting in with 600 mil in the bank. John Jones is asking for 10, and Garner's asking for whatever. You know, and Gane gets paid 330K, and he's supposedly the baddest man on the planet. And Jake Paul takes 10 million from a boxing fight, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, my thoughts on the meat of the fight, if we can dive into that. When I was thinking about this, there's not many heavyweights. I don't think there's any heavyweights that are like Cyril Gane, but I think the closest heavyweight to him is Volkov, and Volkov's like a shit Gane in that he fights long. He doesn't load up on every single shot like you'd expect a heavyweight to. He ranges well, and he mixes up his strikes from head to like from top to bottom, right? So if we go back and watch the Derrick Lewis and Alexander Volkov fight, what happened? Derrick got absolutely smoked for 4.5 rounds. 5.5 rounds, essentially. And then what happened? Big overhand right, Volkov's out, right? Now, we've seen Gane do this over a sustained amount of time. And personally, although Derrick Lewis has said that he's had his operations, his back's fixed, his knees are better, and he's able to actually train properly, he's still the same fighter in a lot of ways. Has he made improvements? Yes, he has. But does he rely on his power? Yes, he does. And I will always side on the side. Jesus, my English is terrible. I will always move to the side of the fighter that's the more technical. And I think Cyril Gane is the most technical striker in heavyweight fighting at this point.
I would add to that Derrick Lewis is probably the least technical fighter, possibly in the heavyweight division. But
How
what I'd say,
dare you? Roy Nelson once fought in the UFC heavyweight division.
No, you know what?
He had a
Roy
black
Nelson,
belt.
I stand by it.
Black belt.
Derrick Lewis is the highest rank for skill. He has the biggest disparity out of anyone in the UFC. He is obscenely ranked for how little ability he has. And I don't mean this as an insult. He's very successful. But he himself has said it, that if Derrick Lewis manages to win a belt, the UFC heavyweight division should be embarrassed. Yeah. He said that a few days ago, I think. And he was fucking spot on. Volkov should have won that fight. He should have won it, hands down. And I guess his focus slipped for a little bit in the last minute.
It's last because 30 seconds or so.
It's because his back tattoo hadn't been finished yet. That's what it was.
Well, now he should be fine in that case. But
he should be fine.
Cyril Gane is probably one of my favorite heavyweight fighters, actually. And again, I'm not actually a big fan of the heavyweight division because it's shallow, and shallow divisions create not such good fights at the end of the day. But Cyril Gane is a very entertaining guy. He's very skilled. And, I would never bet against him in this fight, except for the fact that Derrick Lewis just seems to win when he fucking shouldn't.
Lee?
So I thought I had the profound insight that this was going to be very similar to the Ozdemir fight. And you've kind of upset me with that one. But looking back to it, it is very true. It's kind of, is it going to be that type of fight? Yes. Is Derrick Lewis going to hand this big hammer and knock him out? I don't know. We'll see. That's where the interest comes from. Going back to the kind of business side of it and the marketing side of it, Derrick Lewis got this fight for that tweet that said, "Shit, I'll take the fight for 8 million." Now, I know he's playing the cards of, my back's great, I've had all the treatments. He said that for the last 3 fights. And then after all the fights, he's gone, "Oh, my back's bad. He's made it clear in no uncertain terms that he's there to make as much money as he can, as quick as he can. And do you know what? All the power to him. I just think as he creeps up in age, as his injuries likely get worse over time, I think the chances of him landing that big knockout blow get less. And Cyril Gane is a real technical fighter who I might add has trained with Ngannou, knows his style, won't have the fear that other people have because he's been in there with him before, and actually sets up a really interesting title fight if Gane wins.
I just want to add, sorry, Ian, before I chuck it over to you. The thing, if I'm Cyril Gane, sorry, that's you, Robbie, Cyril Gane, if I'm his coach, right, and I'm him as a fighter, what do? I'm going to beat the brakes off of Derrick Lewis's legs. I'm going to teep him in the body as much as I can and just wear that fucker down, right? Because in round 4 or round 5, when his hands are on his knees, you just chin him, right? And, you know, you might not put him away, but his in and out style, I think the evasion of that big overhand, right? He loads it up so much, right? My nan could see it. She lives in Wales. You know what I mean? Like, it comes from a mile out. So, yeah, I think the footwork and the in and out movement and the shot selection, the fight IQ of Cyril Gane is just going to be way too much. Ian, have you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I have plenty of thoughts.
But, good. That's pleasing.
This fight,
good to hear something going on.
Yeah, it's like this is tailor made really for Cyril Gane to get the win. I mean, when you're looking at Derrick Lewis in this fight is not going to go in there. He's not going to outstrike him. He's not as good as an athlete as Cyril Gane. What Derrick Lewis is going to have to do in there is going to have to try come in there and use his experience, use his fight IQ, and try and set traps. Look at whether we say it or whether or not, we can say what we like. He's fighting for a UFC title, so he has some level of fight IQ. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And I mean, if he can set those traps, his only way out of this is landing a big shot, and that's it. And if this fight gets finished early, it will probably be more like Derrick Lewis landing that shot. But as the guy said, the longer that this fight goes on, the harder it is going to be for him to do that. And it's also going to be very hard because of the guy who's standing across from him, Cyril Gane, who has been pretty much flawless so far in his UFC career.
For sure. Who
is fighting at a very technical, high level, non-risk kind of, which you know, I have a couple of thoughts on the way he fights. I understand the way he fights long. He'll use the leg kick, like Harry said. He'll use that to set up his punches in the later rounds, and he can come out with like his speed and his movement for a heavyweight. Cyril Gane's speed and movement is next to none. It's on a basis of a next level heavyweight. The only thing that I would like to see a little bit more from Cyril Gane is start taking a few more chances in fights. You know, I think that with Volkov and stuff like that, with the guys he's been in against, he has been comfortably winning fights, whereas that I prefer, and it's just a personal thing for me, I like to see these guys take a few chances and try and get a few finishes. An example I could give on that, it would be Kamaru Usman, who was winning easily in his fights, but he needed to get to the next level as a fighter and also to get that buzz around him. He's starting to finish guys now. I think Cyril Gane has to do that as well. And I think that this is the perfect fight for him to do that. If he can go in and he can put Derrick Lewis away inside the distance, that perfectly sets up the unified title fight with Francis Ngannou, who is a former training partner who used to train with Fernand Lopez, who is now training Cyril Gane too. I mean, that's the basics of this fight. Cyril Gane needs to fight his fight, which he always does and is always successful in doing. He's going to chop the legs. He's going to try and land shots. And like, I mean, it's all going to boil down to how badly Derrick Lewis wants this. He's been in his title shot before. If he's back is against the wall in round 3, round 4, and he's getting his legs beat up, he's getting hit with flurries of punches, it's all going to be whether down to he wants to stay in there and try and fight it out more so. But it's also up to Cyril Gane to turn up that pressure and try get the finish. That's what I really want to see from Gane in this fight.
The only thing I will say is you probably don't want to be taking too many risks against Derrick Lewis.
No, you don't. But like, you're going to have to take risks at some stage. And the heavyweight division is a dangerous division no matter what. You know, if you get hit with one shot with any fighter, doesn't matter whether it's Derrick Lewis or anybody else. And I mean, that might, like, he may stay doing it. I'm just talking about what I would like to see. Look, he's in there and he's getting the fucking thing done. He's winning his fights and kudos to him. But I mean, if he's going to stay and do that, he will generate a level. Like, who would you honestly prefer going in there to see fight? Francis Ngannou, who's going to knock 7 shades of shit out of somebody and who you're absolutely terrified to see what's going to happen? Or would you prefer to see Cyril Gane fight on the outside and kick the shit out of people's legs and land those big shots and win comfortable decisions every time? Like, I know what I would like to see each time.
Bleed.
But just bleed. That's it. That's the violent man coming out in me. I mean, but that's what heavyweight. What really entices us watching heavyweight fights is that knowing that one shot could finish the fight at any moment, and that's why we're always on the edge of our seats watching heavyweight fights. And I can't blame Gane. I can't blame Gane for going to do it. Now, I ain't going in fighting these monsters. He's got to do what he's got to do. But I mean, if to get to the next level as a fighter, if you want to get the superstar status, you are going to have to start taking some chances.
Right. He's line. Well, sorry, Harry. I see you want to move on. I was just going to say he's got an interim title shot. He's this close to getting to the title. We never see anyone get more risky when they get the belt. If we're not seeing it yet, we're never going to see a risk taking down.
Kamaru Usman was a decision machine until 3 fights ago, until he started finishing guys. And he finished Colby Covington, he finished Gilbert Burns, and he knocked out Jorge Masvidal. So he was a person who was winning decisions, won the title, and then started knocking out guys. And you can see the level of progression in his career. He's starting to get the buzz. Now since he started knocking people out, that's when people are starting to talk in him in the pound for pound status list and stuff like that.
We will move on and we'll get to picks, but I think this is an important point to note. That is just because the monopoly on MMA is by the UFC, and the UFC pride themselves on finishes, right? Like, if we go back to Pride days, not to say that Pride didn't pride themselves on finishes, Jesus. However, what they did do is they wanted to see wars. They wanted to see technical battles. They wanted to see guys go in there and give everything. If they didn't get a finish, fine. They were still lauded as a warrior, right? The UFC's marketing ploy is we see finishes. But before we get on a mad rant and spend another half an hour on this fight, Ian, picks.
My pick is Cyril Gane to either win late or by decision. I'm probably going to go with Cyril Gane by 4th round stoppage.
Okay, Lee?
So I think my head is kind of the smart option, say Gane by decision, playing it safe. But I think I want to pick Gane by a late stoppage with Derrick Lewis resembling something like a Dada 3000, absolutely exhausted and just kind of giving up the ghost.
Well, let's hope there's not 2 heart attacks in there.
Well, yeah, not that.
Yeah, I think along those lines, late finish by Cyril Gane. Heavyweight fights tend to either end early with knockouts or late because both of the fighters just gas and can't keep going. But Cyril Gane has got unusually good cardio. He's very technical. I think Derrick Lewis basically runs out of steam, and Cyril Gane picks his shots until he gets the TKO or the knockout.
So my pick is that at the weigh-ins, Derrick Lewis is going to paint one half of his face blue and one half of his face white. He's going to embody Paul Craig, and he's going to get this done at 4:59 of round 5 by a massive overhand right. No, I'm obviously joking. Yeah, I don't think Cyril Gane finishes Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis has a way of just staying in fights, right? Like, what did he say? Alongside that quote of, if I win the heavyweight title, the UFC heavyweight division should be embarrassed. He also was like, yeah, I just kick dudes in the nuts so I can take a break. Right? Like he Jesus. Like, he finds a way to stay in fights, right? And I don't think Gane, unless he is 100% confident that he can wade in, land shots, and Lewis won't be able to throw back and land, he won't take that risk, right? What Ian was saying was bang on. So I take Gane versus via a 5-round decision. Obviously, we'll move on. Nunes, Pena off the card. Jose Aldo, Pedro Munhoz. Ian, inside 30 minutes, go.
This could good one. This could be our new main event, and it's be our co-main event. I mean, and it'd be a very wordy one too. I mean, these two guys have been around the block for many years, and they don't owe anything to anybody. But here they are, both sitting there, 34 years of age, both wanting to go on their last title run, and that's basically what it is. You know, I think both of them have one last run in them, but only one of them will be able to continue that run after this fight. I was very critical of Jose Aldo moving down to 135 at the very start. I didn't think it was a good move for him. I didn't think that he looked all that well, but I do feel after seeing him there in a couple of fights that he's really after growing into the weight, and it's amazing that he's still up there at the highest level competing. When it boils down to this fight, this is a fight I feel that would favor Jose Aldo very more so over Pedro Munhoz. I think that Jose Aldo's takedown defense will nullify Pedro Munhoz's attempts to take the fight down to the mat, and obviously Jose Aldo is much better on the feet and much more of a crisper striker. Munhoz does have some decent boxing, but I mean, I don't think it's going to be anything that will ever trouble Jose Aldo, and this is going to be a great fight, the battle of the Brazilians.
I couldn't agree more. The big question for me, and I know this is the age-old question, he brought them out against Petr Yan, but do we see some Jose Aldo leg kicks? That's my question.
I think we might, because Munhoz does have a pretty wide stance and does like to depend on his boxing. So, I mean, if Jose Aldo can time Munhoz's boxing and maybe throw that leg kick out and time his jab, I think we'll see it. Will we see it to the level that we've seen it before? Maybe not, but I think every fighter needs to prepare for that leg kick, whether he throws it or not. And I guess that level of doubt Aldo can instill into his opponent still, whether we don't know whether he's going to do it or not. His opponents don't know. Only Jose Aldo will know. I think it would be a wise move, definitely in this fight, to do it for sure, to slow Munhoz down, and just it's a form of Aldo controlling the fight. And if he can land those leg kicks like he was landing them before, like, I mean, Munhoz might not make it out there. Yeah. But with Aldo, he never really bought into the leg kicks after he broke his foot when he fought the Korean Zombie. And it was after that injury that we never really seen him throw a massive amount of leg kicks after that, because he used to be throwing them all over the place before that. And I just can't imagine what it would be like to take a calf kick from Jose Aldo.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay on this side of never knowing. Lee, any thoughts?
So I agree with Ian wholeheartedly. I think to add to it,
you fucking simp.
I think Munhoz wants to keep this standing, but I think Aldo is a better striker in that. So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a kind of technical difference, and I think we're going to see not prime, but I think we're going to see a better Jose Aldo. He looked good against Vera. It's going to benefit him greatly that it's 3 rounds. The Petr Yan fight, you saw him really drop off. And again, it's against Yan, and he's world class. But I think we're going to see a good Jose Aldo kind of progress and Munhoz kind of move backwards. I think there's a good chance he throws a lot of kicks, not to set up kind of strikes, because Munhoz is busy, and I think he's going to try and nullify the busyness by kicking him to stop him coming forward and out striking him in terms of numbers. But I think there's like a Grim Reaper sat on the cage, isn't there? Kind of who's going forward in their career and who's kind of going to the lower depths of the cards after this one.
Before I just chuck it over to Robbie, I think the Vera fight actually is a really interesting one. What does Marlon Vera do? He walks forward. What does Pedro Munhoz do? He walks forward. Mm-hmm. Good luck walking down Jose Aldo. Good fucking luck. Robbie?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like it's already been said. I'm slightly concerned you're going to have to start cutting one of us, because we all agree on a lot of things in these cards. But Jose is clearly the crisper, faster striker. He's much faster. Pedro is quite notorious for being weirdly slow, isn't he?
No.
Yeah,
no,
he moves forward and he looks like it's like it looks slow, but he's deceivingly quick.
Yeah,
especially
the Jimmy Rivera fight.
I'm listening
to
too much.
Snappy guy.
I'm listening. I'm reading too many Twitter comments or something like that. I'm not sure.
All right, Brendan,
the fact is that Jose is a better striker. Whereas Pedro does not have, he's not got a fantastic record of, well, taking people down, to be honest. He's not, an A-class. There's actually, you know what, I don't even know his history, but he's not got the best takedown percentage in the game. Jose Aldo also is just an absolute killer of wrestlers. So if you're not going to win on the feet with Jose, well, it's quite hard to see what you're going to do. You're going to have to be an absolute beast of a wrestler to get him on the ground. And I just don't think that's Munhoz. I don't really know what there is to say that's not already been said. I think Jose takes this. Crisper striking. I don't think it's likely to hit the ground unless it's for a finish. And I think there's a good reason that Jose is the favorite.
So your pick is Jose Aldo via?
I would go via. I'll give him a TKO. I don't know.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Lee.
Aldo decision for me.
Ooh, interesting. Ian?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Lee. I think an Aldo decision is probably the likeliest outcome of this fight. I mean, Munhoz is tough as hell. And I think if he is to try even to get a fathom of a thought of winning this fight, I think he'll have to try and fight a little bit of a dirtier fight and try to get in close on Jose Aldo, get him clinching against the cage, get Aldo grappling and clinching and just all that kind of stuff. But that's easier said than done because Aldo is a beast at takedown defense. And if he does not want to initiate a clinch, he's going to be pushing you away. And then you're back in a striking battle again. So I think, Munhoz, we'll probably see Munhoz lose the belief that he can win this fight throughout the fight as it goes on. And a Jose Aldo decision is what I'm going for.
That's a brilliant, brilliant point. Munhoz, and I'm just going to repeat that. Munhoz will lose the confidence to win as the fight goes on. That's fucking bad. That's Jose Aldo in a fucking nutshell, right? Like what happens with Aldo? It comes out, bursts out of the blocks in round 1, takes round 2 off, and then smashes you in round 3. Like he's a formidable 3-round fighter. We've always known it, right? And yeah, I picked Jose Aldo via decision. I just think Pedro Munhoz is too tough. But Jose's looked nasty at 135, man. Like real nasty. Not to say he wasn't nasty at 145, but I'm going to pick that. So we will move on now to Chiesa versus War Luque.
What a surprise. You gave yourself Vincente Luque to talk about.
My fucking boy, War Luque.
I said at the start of the podcast, his favourite fighter, and I thought we were going into this fight from the start.
No. I mean, the reason why Zabit Magomedsharipov is one of my favourite fighters is because he came in and he was one of the first guys that seamlessly blended grappling with striking and then striking with grappling, right? Like backwards and forwards, up and down. It was just seamless. Some of the trips and unorthodox movements were just fantastic. So yeah, Michael Chiesa versus my second favorite fighter, War Luque. I actually think this fight is really interesting. Like quite obviously it's a striker versus a grappler, right? We know that Chiesa wants to take it to the mat. He wants to try and choke you, and War Luque will happily stand and bang for 10 rounds if you fancy it. I think that Luque gets sometimes people think he relies on his chin too much, right? Because he gets in wars. Now, that's evident if you look at the Wonderboy fight, right? He just walked down Wonderboy and just got fucking head kicked over and over and over again. But in other fights, you can see that he actually can box, he actually can strike. But the underrated part of Luque's game is actually his grappling, right? He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, well able to handle himself on the ground. I think this is a really tough fight for Chiesa. Chiesa obviously has a wrestling background, which is cool. Purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu or brown belt maybe at this point, I'm not sure. And obviously his move up to 170, I think has been really, really good for his game. However, Chiesa's never been a striker, and he's never been one to strike going backwards either, right? So how are you going to push Luque back is my question.
So this was my point around this fight. The way Michael Chiesa sets up takedowns is with a long right hand or a looping hook into a single leg. If you're fighting Luque, who's got power, who can strike, who isn't just a brawler, who can box, you're setting a lot of risks for yourself to get caught with something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Chiesa has the ability to be the spoiler, to get in on a leg, to kind of hold him against the cage, be a bit of a spoiler. However, I think there's a lot of risk in getting to that position. You're going to get cracked. And Luque has such a bigger advantage on the feet at that point.
So my thoughts on this are Chiesa, okay, it can't be as extended as my example, but for me, Chiesa should try to emulate Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya. Bait Luque for the first round into purely a striking matchup. Don't even think about shooting a takedown, right? You're going to have to walk through the fire, right? Chiesa said this himself. You're going to have to walk through the fire. But if you can make Luque believe that this is just a striking match, and then you throw a double leg at him when he least expect it, then it gets interesting, right? Mm-hmm. We've not seen Luque on the ground in a long time with a really good grappler. And I'm really interested to see how Chiesa tries to navigate this fight tactically. Because if you just try and stand with him, it's going to be a long night. If you use your usual setups for takedowns, it's going to be a long night. I said we wouldn't talk about him, but I kind of have to for this. If Chiesa manages to get Luque to the cage and manages to grapple, McGregor elbows are always there, right? And from then, what happens? Everyone bails on the shot. Everyone moves to a single leg, or everyone just bails completely, right? So, yeah, my pick for this is Luque, but Robbie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's turning into sort of a classic striker grappler matchup, which, there's a few bits to consider, but I don't think Michael's got the takedown percentage again to be guaranteed of just being able to do it. He is going to have to do something tricky. I like your idea about a strategy of waiting for the takedown. I don't know if that's exactly what he's going to employ, but there's going to have to be some trickery for Michael Chiesa to nail this one, to be honest, because otherwise Luque is going to fucking hammer him. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it'll happen. Yeah. I was about to give my pick, but you don't want that yet, so we'll hold off.
Ian?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you, Harry, in saying that this is like a fantastic tactical bout, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what both guys can bring to the table here. I mean, like when you're talking about Chiesa, what he's going to have to do, and I think that this fight will be a battle of the front foot, as in whoever's moving forward is probably going to be winning the fight. So that Chiesa is going to be wanting to back Luque up and get him up against the cage so he can snatch that leg. Another tactic that Chiesa could use is he could try lure Luque into throwing wild shots as well and just drop down in under him for a double leg. But that's easier said than done. I think if Chiesa was going to get Luque down to the mat, it would be up against the cage rather than in the middle of the cage, because Luque is very explosive, has a very good sprawl as well. And you don't want to be trying to take somebody down in the middle of the cage when he's sprawling on top of you, because when Luque is getting back up, he's going to be unleashing the depths of hell on any of his opponents. Because he doesn't want anybody to be shooting on him. When you're shooting on somebody, you have to make it count. You have to make it stick. And when you're defending a takedown, you have to make that person pay for wanting to take that fight down if he doesn't get there. With Luque, I mean, it's a tough fight for him. I mean, because he's going to be in when his kicking game, he's going to have to be very careful going to the body, going to the head. He doesn't want to get his legs caught and taken down that way. I think he might try rely on, and I think it's going to be a common denominator in all the fights that we're talking about here, guys, is the introduction of calf kicks into the sport of MMA. I mean, they're game changers, and if Luque can get off a couple of those, I mean, that will cause all kinds of trouble for Chiesa here. But it's a really interesting technical fight. It's a clash of styles. I always love watching those kind of fights to see what tactics the fighters bring in. It may not be a beautiful watch for the casuals. I think if Chiesa can get his game plan down, it will be to double leg, get Luque down to the mat and land some ground and pound and half guard and go for the rear naked choke. When I come to my fight pick, I would probably say that the likely outcome is that Chiesa might be able to get Luque back up against the cage and take him down and maybe irk out a decision. Harry is not impressed.
The thing I'd say about the calf kicks, though, is that those calf kicks have really exploded in MMA because of the development of boxing skills and the trend towards slightly longer, more bladed stances as a result. Does that fit Chiesa's striking style much? I have to wonder if that's going to be a very effective technique in this case.
He will throw out he'll throw out his jabs, and he is going to be when you're a grappler and you're fighting an explosive striker. I mean, if you want to fight to get to the mat, you're going to be encouraged to just throw a couple of wild shots as well. So if Luque can counter those wild shots, you see it with lots of wrestlers, they throw these big, wild, mad spinning shit because they don't care if they end up on their back, because they probably have the confidence that they'll be able to sweep and then get the fight out to where they wanted. The reason why I would pick Chiesa to dominate Luque, because he's done it against the likes of Rafael dos Anjos. He's done it against the likes of, who wouldn't be a great one, but Neil Magny, who would be known for his grappling expertise. He dominated him with quite easily too. So, I mean, I'm not disregarding Luque's ground game at all. He's a black belt. I don't see him getting submitted here, but I do believe that raw wrestling ability, the advantage has to go to Michael Chiesa in this fight, and he just has that's his way of winning fights, and it's very hard to stop.
I think Harry's kind of heartbroken, so
I'll
give my pick. I'll give my pick while he's upset.
Go on.
For the second time, my profound insight, which I thought I had alone, has been spoilt by Ian, because I also am going for Michael Chiesa. I think he is a big, strong wrestler who is going to play spoiler, is going to kind of smother Luque, probably get him to the ground one or two times, strong on top. There's going to be no submission. There's going to be no threat of submission. It's going to be grind out a win, progress with your career. He's got a huge frame. He is how he ever made 155 is beyond me, because he's big guy.
Big guy.
Well, you know what? I will pick Michael Chiesa because I want to see if I can actually hear Harry's screams of grief from Brighton to London. I want to see if the sound carries that far.
Well, for anyone that's made it this far into the podcast, just understand that next month's podcast is just going to be me on my own. So my unbiased opinion here, I'm still going to pick Luque, but the reason why I'm going to pick Luque is because I don't think that the options or the comparisons that you just gave, Ian, like RDA loves the fucking wrestler, right? He's just shit at wrestling. You know what I mean? Neil Magny is a great example because he's a really well-rounded fighter, but Neil Magny also prefers to strike. Right? He'll grapple if he has to, don't get me wrong, and he's a good grappler. He likes to mix it up. However, I feel as though a lot of Magny's game is based on striking. Maybe somebody can correct me. My thoughts on Luque, though, are that I don't know how much fire Chiesa is going to walk through or going to have to walk through, and whether that... I think it comes down to whether he's successful in the first couple of attempts to takedowns, right? If Luque can stuff those takedowns well enough, boy, it's going to be tough, right? Like, we kind of saw it with Corey Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw. Like, TJ tried 19 takedowns and hit 2. And both of those were one flying knee, one spinning wheel kick, right? But we know that TJ is not going to deviate away from the game plan. I wonder what happens when Chiesa walks through the level of fire that Luque is going to attempt to put on him. Will we see the same thing? Does he have the same gas tank to shoot the same explosive shots that he has? If he does, and he gets him against the cage and he can wear him down, boy, Luque's in a lot of trouble, right? Because as you say, he's a very, very dominant grappler. But I just feel as though Luque will be able to keep his back off the fence long enough. I don't know how. So my thoughts on throwing wild shots, right, and ducking under wild shots and shooting. Surely Luque knows that, right? So if Luque fights with straight shots rather than looping shots, the ability to shoot on that is much more difficult. And we know that Chiesa is difficult. It is tough to fight when he's moving forward. And Luque is a man that will almost certainly press you forward. So I'm going to pick Luque by decision and fuck the three of you.
The fact that it's in a bigger cage will certainly suit Luque a lot more than
sure.
what it will suit Chiesa here. And I mean, what Harry said is completely right. Vincente Luque is way more of a durable fighter than what Michael Chiesa is. So if he can weather the storm and kind of dishearten Chiesa coming into the third round, this fight is going to have spells of excitement when both fighters are on the feet and Luque is trying to land that damage. And then we're going to come into a period of the fight where, Chiesa is going to try and initiate the clinch to try and get the fight down to the ground, which might not be as exciting, but that's the beautiful tactics of mixed martial arts.
Right, so we'll move on to the prelims. We're nearly an hour deep, so we'll run through these relatively quickly. Tornado Tecia Torres versus Angela Hill. Robbie, I gave you these fights just in case you didn't know them. So do you want to run through these?
Well, thank you for introducing me to some new people, Harry. You know what? I like this one. I think this would be a good fucking fight.
Great fight.
I haven't got, I have to be honest, I haven't got a lot of technical breakdown. I have one bit of insight, but apart from anything, I'd say they both go for it. They're both great strikers. I think they'll just smash each other for 3 rounds. And
this is a rematch, right?
You know what, Harry? I didn't know it was a rematch. That's really embarrassing, actually. I do actually know who they are. I just didn't look through their whole history, as it turns out.
Fine.
They did fight back in 2015, so you can't be forgiven.
It was a while ago.
The 2015's probably about when I started watching MMA.
Right, so you probably watched the first fight. Just forgot about it.
Yeah, I probably forgot about it. Yeah. No, you know what? They're both competent strikers. They'll both come forwards and they'll both try and take chunks out of each other. What I would say is that Tecia Torres has shown trouble when people put her against the fence. She looks extremely strong, but she seems to really struggle to get off the fence when people do that. And what normally happens is people tend to grind out a takedown or something like that and don't manage to land a lot of damage. Obviously, Angela Hill's much more leaning towards the Muay Thai side of things. And if I was Angela Hill, I would be considering looking to put Tecia Torres against the fence and start landing knees and landing damage like that without letting her off, because it seems to be an area she struggles in. And besides that, I couldn't call it. If it's in the open, I'd say Tecia Torres probably got more power. Angela Hill's probably a bit more... a look of disdain from Harry. Tecia Torres looks like she's got more power. I think Angela Hill's a bit more of a trickier striker, but it's a bit of a toss-up who wins it in the open. And that's what I'd say. Good tactic for Angela Hill. If Tecia Torres can stay off, maybe she can win that. I doubt either of them will look to bring it to the ground.
Anyone want to jump in, Ian?
I think that if we're going to put money down on this fight, back this fight to go to a decision all the way, all 3 rounds. Bet the over on this fight for sure. And I agree with much of what Robbie said there. I mean, when it comes to being on the feet, I would definitely give the advantage to Hill. For sure.
Me too.
I mean, I think that she's a really good Muay Thai fighter. And one thing that she'll have in her benefit this time is she will have a big reach advantage. So she will have the ability to stay on the outside on the feet and land that damage on the outside. And, it's going to be similar enough in certain ways to Vincente Luque, whereas it's going to be Tecia Torres' job to get in on the inside so she can land her damage, but she's going to have to take a couple of shots too. I can see this fight majoritarily playing out on the feet. And if I was to give my prediction right now, I would say that Angela Hill would win by decision.
Yeah, what I love is that, Ian, last time you were talking about how you always give your pick too early, and you even knew you were doing it then, and you just plowed on and did it anyway.
Yeah, I just did it. But you know what? Harry did it in the last fight, so I was like, okay, this is fucking open market here, man. And I was being good until that, because I was being good, but Harry's after opening up the floodgates there, so
I apologize.
It'll be prediction central here for the rest of the podcast.
I think Angela Hill is one of the most improved fighters in her division. Frankly,
you've done it again to me.
Yeah, fuck you.
Found inside.
Like, Angela Hill was very much a rudimentary striker when she first started. Very little takedown defense and very little defense or offense on the ground. Whereas now she genuinely looks like a good striker, right? In and out movement is good. Her angles are nice. Her shot selection's good. And the big thing, Ian, obviously you took my point away because you do these things, is the range, right? Tecia Torres is what, 5'3", 5'4"? Angela Hill is 5'7", 5'8", right? That's huge. That's absolutely huge. And if I'm Angela Hill, I'm doing one of two things. I'm fighting on the outside and picking off Tecia Torres as and when I want to. And if Tecia closes the distance, Muay Thai clinch is a real thing. Physicality is a real thing. I definitely agree that Tecia is strong, but long limbs, big knees, elbows off the break, that's Angela Hill for me. Tecia Torres does have one thing, and that's incredible speed, right? Her blitzing ability is fantastic. And Angela doesn't do so well when she's crowded. And that to me is the tactical battle. How often can Tecia Torres crowd Angela Hill and make her flustered? How well can Angela Hill jam the teeps into Tecia Torres as she runs in, jam the elbows, jam the straight shots? If Angela Hill is able to do that and dissuade Tecia Torres from the blitz so much, it's going to be a tough night for Tecia. She can fight going backwards. Her side kick going backwards is really, really nice, but the range is a problem. And I'm going to follow on Ian because he's a confident man. I think Angela Hill by decision is an easy bet for this one. I'm not saying that Tecia Torres can't win or won't win. She may well, but my pick here is Angela Hill. Lee, take us away with another profound.
Yeah, you've done me again with profound insights tonight. I think it's none of my insights are profound. They're just common now. So I feel bad about myself. Angela Hill is by far the better striker and is improved massively with her striking, and to the point where it looks very impressive to watch. Mm-hmm. Angela Hill, however, strikes me as the type of person who is your absolute gym superstar, where you see her in the gym and you go, you are phenomenal. You could be a world champion. And it just doesn't seem to have landed for her in the cage. She has all the physical attributes you'd want. She has the skill, the technique you'd want. And it just doesn't seem to come together in the cage for her. She seems to take one step forward, two steps back, two forward, one back. It doesn't seem to just work for her in competition. Mm-hmm. And I think this is going to be a night where that happens again. And I think Torres wins.
Well, that's a big fuck you to Angela Hill. Robbie, do you want to make a pick?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go with Angela Hill. I mean, I do think she's a much trickier striker, even if, I'm sure Harry will roll his eyes at this one. I do, Tecia Torres does seem to be the faster, harder hitter. That is why, there we go. But Angela Hill's definitely the trickier striker, and she's got more ways to win than Tecia Torres has. That's what I think. She's got more options. Tecia Torres is going to have to be very careful about the strategy, but also, as with many fights in this division, it's a decision making. It's a decision magnet. This whole division is. It's going to go the distance more than likely.
Right. So. All of that whole thing, you didn't actually tell me who you were picking. You said who you were going to pick, but you didn't actually give me an official prediction.
Well, Harry, I hoped you could read between the lines, but I'm going to go with Angela Hill.
Fantastic. We'll move on to the fight of the night, I think. Are we all in agreement? Fight of the night, Song Yadong, Casey Kenney?
Yep.
Fantastic. Lee, take us away.
So my opening gambit was going to be, how dare you not start with before Tecia Torres and Angela Hill, because this is, for me, going to be fight of the night. Mm-hmm. You have two guys coming off a loss who are just aggressive, nasty. There's somebody in the UFC who doesn't like Casey's brain, because the Dominic Cruz fight, the war that he had with Nathaniel Wood, there's somebody who just doesn't like his brain, because Song Yadong is nasty and has some good striking. Mm-hmm. I don't want to give any kind of profound insight to how this matchup's going to go, because I don't think I have it. But it's two aggressive guys coming off a loss. It's that class. And I feel like I always talk about the UFC business more than I do the fight. But this is the thing of, if you're going to open a card or finish your prelims, you have to do it with a good fight. And this is just, you have to applaud the UFC for picking fights like this and putting them on the card where they do, because it's just two really aggressive going forward guys. For me, Kenney is kind of massively underrated. Some of the technical striking he's shown against Cruz and Nathaniel Wood was very, very good. The adjustments he made in the Wood fight in the second round were brilliant. And he needs to be credited for that, because that first round looked really bad for him. And you kind of thought, this is Nathaniel Wood's coming out party. And he made some great adjustments to change the distance, to put it at a different range, and to kind of get in on Wood. For me, that's where my kind of choice, if we're going into picks right on the off, I think Kenney wins. But I think this is just going to be a real barn burner.
Nathaniel Wood still won that fight. My thoughts on this are that my profound insight is Kenney is definitely a more well-rounded fighter. He throws kicks, he changes levels, his range ability is really, really good. Song Yadong can fucking bang though. Right? And I think in that division, it's not often at the level that these guys are that you see one-hitter quitters, right? And Song Yadong's debut was a one-hit and fucking quitter, right? And what Casey Kenney, like Song Yadong is also a very big man for this division, right? And Casey Kenney is not a huge man for the division. So it's a similar fight in terms of range to Angela Hill, Tecia Torres, but without the vast disparity. Casey's combination striking coming in is absolutely fantastic. But if Song Yadong could time that, work out Casey's timing, and land some of the shots that Nathaniel Wood was actually able to land, boy, we're going to see a serious test of Casey Kenney's chin, right? Because Song Yadong can really, really bang. However, I think if Casey Kenney can hit the legs of Song early, touch the body early, the hands will come down and everything will be a lot easier. But it's going to, this is just war written all over it. All over it, Ian.
Yeah, I agree with what all you guys are saying. It's going to be a fantastic fight. And when you're talking about a fight like this, where two guys are willing to lay it down on the line, literally anything could happen. To break down the nitty gritty of the fight, what we've seen with Song Yadong in his past fights is what Harry said. He's absolutely lethally dangerous in early. And if he can time those shots from Kenney early and land heavy, he will probably knock Casey Kenney out. But the problem that he has had in his recent fights is that what he does when that doesn't work in round one, and it doesn't seem that he has a plan B. And that's something that he really is going to have to work on in these fights, because if he doesn't land that big shot, that means he's going to have to bring it into the second and the third rounds and maybe change up his game plan a little bit. And we've not seen really that much from him. Yes, he stays doing what he's doing and he wins some fights. Yes, and he does it, and when he loses some fights too. And I think that Casey Kenney is probably going to come in here with that full knowledge of knowing that he's not going to put himself in too much danger early on in this fight. And he's going to be trying to bring it into the later stages and that will give him a better chance of winning it too. But I mean, like you guys said, this has exciting written all over it, and it could literally go anyway.
Robbie, round us out.
Well, I am starting to realize that I might be the least technically astute guy out of anyone on this podcast team. So after the three of you have broken it down, and almost all of you, most of you, your comments have basically been around, I haven't got a lot of technical insight, but it's going to be a barn burner. I unfortunately have nothing else technical to add beyond what you've spoken about. So in the interest of keeping the podcast a bit shorter, I'm just going to say I am excited for the fight. I do know who both these guys are, Harry, and I don't know who's going to win. I think it'll be fucking fun, though.
All right, well, let's try and get some picks. I'm going to pick Casey Kenney by decision. Lee?
I'm going to do Casey Kenney by decision. I think what Ian said is absolutely spot on.
Me too.
Song Yadong has a great plan A, but if it doesn't work, Casey Kenney does have a plan B, C, and maybe a D.
Yeah, I mean, when I said Casey Kenney was the more well-rounded fighter, that's kind of what I meant. But Ian was like, "Fuck this guy! He's only got a plan A. Shithouse." Ian, have you got a pick for us? Oh, you did make a pick, right?
I didn't actually. I held off this time, but my pick for this fight would be probably Casey Kenney by decision. Again, I think he's going to play the smart game. He's not going to be looking to initiate in a stand-up war with Yadong in the early stages, and I think that he'll bring Yadong into rounds 2 and 3. Yadong will tire out a small bit, and Kenney can just kind of up the pressure, and I think that will be enough for him to take a decision.
Robbie?
You know what? I'm gonna go with Casey Kenney. You guys have convinced me that he's got more plans, and I'm just gonna jump on the bandwagon.
Fantastic. We'll move on to Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Jessica Penne. Ian, you want to run us through this very quick?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be another good fight. I think Karolina is coming back and kind of looking for a bit of a career resurgence, really. She's had a lot of problems and issues outside of the cage, I think, with her mental health and stuff like that. And it's good to see her back. She managed to get up there and get herself a title shot before, and I mean, she does have the skills there. You just don't lose them overnight. But I think she's staring down the barrel of the gun of 4 losses in a row, and it's really make or break for her in this fight against Jessica Penne, who's also been up there in the upper echelons of the division in the past as well. Like, she's coming. She had dropped 3 of her fights before she beat Godinez in her last fight. So I mean, it's really a make or break fight for Karolina coming in here. If I'm looking at these 2 fighters, can I see either of them making a title run again? I really, really can't. But I mean, this is an interesting fight. I'm more curious in Karolina's story here coming into it, and to see if she can make that turnaround in her career, because she's been through the ringer. She's happily married now. She's had some time out of the cage. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we see a refreshed and rejuvenated Karolina coming in. And if we do, I think she has enough to get the job done.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup for the reasons you've just stated. Karolina looked terrible in her last 3 fights, right? It looked like she was completely shot. Chin was gone, had no desire to fight. And the moment that she took a shot, it was, I'm out. Like, I'm done. Just take me out, right? Penne isn't obviously the hardest hitter, well-rounded fighter, got some grindy grappling, got some striking. I think that what the UFC are doing here are basically who gets cut. That's kind of what it feels like, right? Penne is obviously at the end of her career. Basically, yeah. And I kind of have to pick Penne in this just because she's been more active, right? And 2 years or 3 years, or however long she's been out, is a long time for Karolina Kowalkiewicz to have been out.
Has it been that long?
It's been a long time. Yeah, it's been a long time. Let me just check here.
Her last fight was in... Oh, go ahead, Harry.
It was, 2020. So yeah, coming up for, so it was February of 2020. So it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while, just a year and a half.
Well, let's be honest, that's not too bad.
It feels like a lot longer, actually.
Harry? I would have thought the same. I would have thought it would have been a lot longer as well.
Because I'm sure it was 2 months ago or so, I said that she was in the division, and you all laughed at me saying that she was retired.
Yeah, I mean, she had retired technically, but
MMA retired.
Yeah, exactly. MMA so I'm just looking here. So she lost to Jessica Andrade in 2018, took a year out, or a half a year out, and fought Michelle Watson and Alexa Grasso within 3 months of each other, which is, Jesus, that's a fucking bad decision. And then she took 9 months out, and fought Julianna. Thank you. That's very kind of you. I don't know. I don't have much to say about this fight other than what I've already said. And my pick is Jessica Penne versus decision. Versus decision. Yeah. Lee?
So I think the time off thing needs to be addressed, because Penne took 4 years off from her last fight.
Mm-hmm.
She has been plagued with injuries. Her striking was never great. She had good jiu-jitsu. She had okay wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Karolina is a better striker,
mm-hmm.
a better wrestler, and probably on par grappling-wise in her peak. I think what this comes down to is we'll get a glimpse into how done Karolina was. If she comes back and she's re-energized, she's ready to go, I think she has all the tools to win this fight, be the better fighter.
Mm-hmm.
I think if she loses this one, it probably is the time where she is done and she's kind of got to the end of her career. I'd go with Karolina on the hope that she's still got a bit of the fire there.
Hope is weak. Robbie?
I mean, what I'd say is I actually don't think it's all bad when fighters take some time out, especially after a series of losses.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, you just don't know how they're going to come back. They could come back. They're actually healed up and they're actually doing well. They could come back exactly the same because they've been unable to address whatever problem it is. Without fights, you've got no data and you've got no idea who it's going to be. I'm going to go on the side of, I'm going to be on the optimistic side. I'm going to hope that Karolina's sorted herself out because she was great. I mean, she really went toe to toe with Jacek at one point. I know she lost, but it was a very competitive fight. I think she did brilliantly. So, optimistic, Kowalkiewicz. What I would say is it's once again decision magnet division. It's going to go the distance.
One thing I will say is Jessica Penne made her debut in 2006, lads.
Good Lord.
OG. She's an OG.
UFC or MMA?
Oh, Jesus, no. Hook and shoot.
She didn't have women's MMA.
Sorry, yeah, you know what?
Casual. Look at him.
Ian,
give us a pick, please.
Behavior.
I'm going to add a little bit more hope from a little bit more strength to the hope that Lee and Robbie are given. That I also think that Karolina, like I said, has the skills. She needs to figure out the mental side of it. I think that this fight is a perfect fight for her. It's not too big of a test. And I think that if she gets her shit together, she'll probably go on to win a decision in this fight.
All right, cool. So I'm just going to rattle through the last fights. None of them are really all that noteworthy. We've got Ed Herman.
I think we should talk about Bobby Green versus Fiziev. I think that's going to be a great fight too, and one that might go under the radar for fight of the night.
All right, cool. So we'll get to that at the end. So we've got Ed Herman, Alonzo Menifield. I mean, whatever. Manel Cape coming back against Ode Osborne. That should be a good showing. I thought
Cape has been disappointing since coming over to the UFC. Like he was killing guys over in Rising, and I mean, I was really excited to see him coming into the UFC.
Me too.
And it just goes to show. I mean, you have to be really on your game, and I think with Cape, his inability to let his shots off have cost him in his first couple of fights in the UFC. But I'm always excited to see him fight, and Ode Osborne is going to be a good opponent. He'll open up for him.
Absolutely. Miles Johns versus Anderson Dos Santos is whatever it is. Johnny Munhoz versus Jamie Simmons. Jericho Rodriguez versus Vince Malares. Victoria Leonardo versus Melissa Gatto. And then we have Rafael Fiziev versus Bobby Green. You know what? I'm not sure this is fight of the night, I think Fiziev whacks him. I really do.
If Bobby Green can make a fight out of this fight, it will be a potential fight tonight. He's always in exciting fights. He talks some shit. He can't get as crazy or loosey goosey with his striking with a guy like Fiziev, I think, because Fiziev will make him pay. I mean, we've seen Fiziev. What really the fight that stood out for me and made me take notice of Fiziev was when he went in there against Mark Chiesa and was pulling off all kinds of matrix shit. He was bending over backwards out of the way of it. And I was like, holy shit, this guy is good. Then he goes in against Renato Moicano in the next fight and drops him dead in one round. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy is the real deal. Now he goes in there against Bobby Green, a seasoned vet, a guy who can try and take him down to the ground and make a fight exciting. And I think this has the makings of a great fight. They're two exciting guys. Bobby Green loves to entertain. Fiziev is just a beast. He wants to go for the finish all the time, and I'm really excited to see if he can get Bobby Green out of there.
I think Bobby Green starts trying to talk shit, and if he starts throwing Stockton slaps, and he's gonna get fucked quick.
Yeah. You can't I understand he likes to entertain and talk shit and drop his hands and stuff like that, but I mean, I would hope Bobby Green comes into this fight with a little bit of more of a game plan. Cannot be doing that against a guy like Fiziev. And I mean, the reason I wanted to talk about this fight was more so to highlight the fact that Fiziev is an animal of a fighter, and I'm looking forward to seeing him progress in the UFC.
So my counter, and the reason why I think Bobby Green whacks him, who are his training partners? Movsar Evloev? Okay, I'm pretty sure he knows how to take a man down. Piotr Yan? Okay. I mean, I don't mean this disrespectfully to Bobby Green, but does Bobby Green beat a Movsar Evloev? No, he doesn't. Does he beat a Piotr Yan? No, he doesn't. Jesus Christ. I mean, those two lads alone, just being in the same room as them and exchanging ideas and training and all that stuff. Jesus, that's a high level room you've got with those three guys. And I feel as though Fiziev in the next 2 years is a top 10 fighter, right? And he's banging on the door for very, very big fights in that division. So I like what the UFC are doing, right? You've given him a regional guy, Mark Diakese, looked really good. You've given him a pretty good fighter in Renato Moicano, right? Perennial inside, outside the rankings. Now you're giving in the vet, and you're like, what can you do? Can you do it? Can you beat the grindy vet? If you can, we're off to the races. So, yeah, I'm taking Fiziev versus first round finish. Robbie?
Christ, we got a long way down the card. It skips a lot of fights without any any decisions on who was going to win what, any technical insight, and then we get to this one. I don't know this one. I have to. I'm just going to go with Bobby Green. Just hoping. Viziev's looked very good in some of his past few. I'm just hoping he keeps up the momentum.
Lee, give me a pick, please.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility that Bobby Green could win this fight, but he has to fight the perfect fight. He's been in there. He's experienced. He's been in with tough guys like Clay Guida. He's been in there with Thiago Moises in his last fight, and he's managed, even though he's lost, he's managed to go to decisions with all those top level fighters, and he does have the ability to go here again. My pick would be Fiziev by early knockout in round 1, but I would not be surprised if Bobby Green can weather that early storm. He might have enough to lose a decision here, but there's no way I can see Bobby Green winning this fight at all. It's been set up for Fiziev to do the job, and that's what I expect him to do.
This is a test for Fiziev. Finish him early, you get the next step up, you move up, you get a kind of grinded 3-round fight out. We kind of know where you're at. You stay where you are for the time being. This is the UFC saying, here's somebody well-tested, well-versed in UFC, been around for a while. If you end him quick, we're going to push you forward. We're going to get you higher up a card with better opponents. You're there ready for it. That's what this fight is. Fiziev, I think, rises to the challenge. I think he finishes him in the first round.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. So those are our fights. Just before we close out, does anyone want to change their opinion on fight of the night? I'm still going Song Yadong versus Casey Kenney.
Song Yadong, Casey Kenney for me all day.
I'll throw a spanner in the works. I'll say Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munhoz.
Yeah, that's going to be a good fight.
For me, a fight of the night is a back and forth fight.
I just see Pedro Munhoz. Back and forth fight. Pedro Munhoz has the ability to make it look like a back and forth fight with whilst losing all the rounds. You know what I mean? So if a guy is moving forward and taking shots, it still looks exciting. And I don't know. But definitely it's between Song Yadong and Casey Kenney. Or for me, I just said I'd throw a spanner in the works. I picked Jose Aldo versus Munhoz for the crack.
And Derrick Lewis gets performance of the night for his 4:59 of the 5th round knockout.
Oh, Christ. Yeah. Imagine if he
bangs his chest and screams, freedom!
Well, we would be in for a hell of a post-fight speech and a post-fight press conference.
I want him to win so we get another my balls was hot.
Yeah. You know what? I think we either get a shock performance of the night from Derrick Lewis, just because he's going to spark because he's going to roll the dice and spark someone out like he always bloody does, or we get a performance of the night from Cyril Gane for just nailing it the whole time. Other performance of the night, Michael Chiesa for nailing Vincente Luque. That's what I'm really hoping for.
You did say Derrick Lewis for knocking someone out, so now I'm worried for Herb Dean being in there.
It's what he does though. Just wings it from anywhere. Who's in the way.
Derrick Lewis is coming into this fight with nothing to lose, and in certain terms, a dangerous fighter is a fighter that has nothing to lose. But I mean. Him as the story of the fight progresses, the chances of him and his belief that he can do it as well will probably slowly dwindle. And anybody think that Lewis might try and initiate, and this sounds absolutely nuts me saying it, but I'm going to throw it out there. Anybody think that Derrick Lewis might go in there and try initiate some grappling and get Gane on his back?
Absolutely not. I'm quite sure that in the corner cam between rounds when he was against Ngannou, he literally said to his coach, I don't know how to wrestle.
Oh, no. It's changed. He's been in interviews recently and he's openly saying, I'm the best blue belt in the world.
Oh, man.
It'll be interesting to see. That's definitely a route he could try and go down to get the win. Like, I mean, like he's not going to fucking win a stand-up battle with Cyril Gane. I think let's be real here. And it's all down to what Derrick Lewis wants to get with this fight. Is he happy to stay there and get the shit beat out of him for 5 rounds, or is he going to try get inside, get the takedown? But we haven't seen too much of Cyril Gane's takedown defense yet, so I'd like to see some of it, and it would be a valued tactic to bring into the fight. But the realistic point of the fight is mainly probably going to be a stand-up battle with Lewis trying to try and land that one big shot.
For sure. Well, that round us out. So I will say thank you, as always, for your time. As I said at the start, if you haven't already, go and listen to the Combat Thoughts Polaris coverage. Go and listen to Severe MMA's podcast. Go and read Severe MMA's articles done by the one and only Ian O'Neill. And I will close it out by saying, fuck Conor McGregor. Gents, I'll see you later.
Cheers, Harry.